Hello. Good morning. Welcome to Animation Critique time. If you have anything that you want critiqued, drop it in the box below. If you're having trouble getting into that box, let me know, and I'll help you out. All right, let's see. We already have some stuff in that box, so I will get going. All right, let's start with this one right here. Let me know if music's too loud or if you can't hear me. All right, Kaylin. All right, so the first thing we got to do is fix that ball. So ball is number 1, tail's number 2. So remember, when you've got a ball on the ground, here we'll do this. It's neutral when it starts. So we want it to be able to squash into something so we see that change of shape. Change of shape is important. Otherwise, we might assume that it's just that regular shape to begin with. So we want neutral, and then if we're going to build up some force, create some anticipation, we're going to squash down. I want to try to maintain that volume. And however long you want to stay on the ground is up to you. The longer you stay, the more force you build up. If we stay there for longer than 2 frames, which you probably will, if you've got that first neutral frame and then a squash, your next frame off the ground should be a stretch. And then that stretch will dissipate and you'll have nothing at the top. This is neutral. And then on the way down, we've got our most stretch right before contact. And then we go into our squash. And then it depends on what you're going to do. If you were just going to stay there, then maybe you would go back to neutral over a few frames. If you're going to continue on, again, try to get 2 frames of contact in there. So a squash would be 1. Stretch would be your second. Same as that right there. Just we're in contact with the ground. And then we repeat the process. Okay? So now let's look at what you've got. So, number 1, we're rotated in the wrong direction. This is correct right there. We're going up, we're getting into a neutral. But what's happening here? So we're squashing here. So we need a stretch that's rotated in the direction that we're coming from. So that squash and stretch is correct through there. We want to get our rotation right, but we're missing that. And you're going to be missing it on almost every bounce right here. You're missing that second half. So let's get down into here. So again, so we're squashing, squashing, squashing in the air all the time. So you've got the same error that's going through. So fix it once, figure it out once, and then just repeat, okay? The other thing that I would look at is your spacing. So when you pop off the ground, you want that to be a jump in space, bigger. So we have a lot of speed to less speed up here. So our drawings are closer together, and then as we are doing this, right, it's bigger. Same thing here, closer together because it's slower, we got hang time, and then they're gonna get gradually bigger as we go. So if we look at this and you pop off the ground, it's not very big, right? And all of these are not very big. They're all kind of the same. They're very close. So we want to exaggerate that spacing. So if you watch it, you can see it's kind of, you get the feel of this because it's even the whole way up and the whole way down. Okay? So all of those things need to be fixed first. Then you can tackle the tail. So one of the things we need to do, remember the tail points from where it came from. So we can certainly use this as a starting point, nothing wrong with that. Let's switch to that. Oops, that didn't work. All right. So as you come up off the ground, we didn't come from that direction, did we? We came from this direction. always pointing back from where we came from. Not this way. We didn't come from that way, right? We came from this way. Again, we came from this way. Boom, and then you hit, I would, because we're still traveling down right here, I would keep it in that direction for right now. Boom, we hit there. Then you get to reverse. If you wanted to on this frame, you could start a little bit down if you wanted to, but for the most part it still needs to be up, and that might help your transition into this one so it's not quite a hard snap going from this straight to that. But that's the idea. It's always pointing from where it came from. So all of these would be the same as what I just drew. Again, as you come into something like this, where did you come from? And it would keep on going. See, you're just dragging from here. So all of these, something like that. And if you're going to stay straight, then we just keep on pointing back this way. Don't really need to flip all the way over. So let's keep it going there. I'd be a little bit careful with this. It does make it feel like it hit a wall because you're going real fast right there. And you have a little bit of squash. And then we change direction. So very fast into very slow, but also a change of direction. Going whoop, whoop. So just be a little bit careful with that. Okay, so now you get into something that's maybe a little bit different. So we still want something like this. This is where we were coming from. So this gets tricky with what you're doing, because really he's going to land on his tail, which you could do, or you're going to have to pull it up, basically. Like that, over several frames. So it would be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames as you travel through there to get it out from underneath where it's going to land. We don't really want to go through the geometry. And again, we're just coming from right here. I'm going to round out that arc a little bit more. But this jump is really similar to all of these. Okay? So get rid of that kink. Let's say we're doing this. We're doing this. This. And then we want to because again, it wants to point from where it came from, but if you're trying to get it out of the way, of course, you might be able to do it with that within there, because you are coming from that direction. It's getting just a little bit tricky because you're bouncing backwards with that tail, so it's going to want to get on that side of the tail. Okay? So ball first, then your tail. All right, let's take a look at your Well, let's look at this. Let's look at Zara's. She gave me a little text document. Let's see. More squash and stretch on the quick bounces. We'll see tail movements on the wall jumps. All right, so we'll address those. Let's take a look. Okay. All right. So let's look at this first jump. So there's something that feels a little bit off about it. Like, I think you might need a little bit more height, because it's lunging forward here. It does feel like it slows down a little bit. I just feel like it needs to be rounded out just a little bit more. I would track that with your motion trail. I think all of these seem fine. Just watch your rotation. Whoops. Here at the top. So you want to point in the direction that you're rotating. So like right now, you kind of gain in your rotation. You're rotating more as you go, and really what it's going to do is the opposite. You're going to have your most rotation at the front, at the beginning, and then it'll slowly even itself out into no rotation at the top, which is right here. So there's two things that's happening right here. You should have no rotation, or just a neutral rotation right here at the top, and also a neutral squash and stretch, so no squash and stretch at this point. So we just want to be like that. So on each of these bounces, that's what you want. I think this is all fine. On your squashes, just make sure you're not kind of oozing through the ground. Kind of melding with the ground there. And it's pretty slow. Do you see how the spacing is real slow? Those should be crisp. Like, you're building up this anticipation and you want to release it. Right now it's building up this anticipation, and then it just kind of mush it. I mean, the squash and stretch turns on, but we kind of mush our way out spatially. And again, we want to watch our rotation, because you're moving in this direction, but we're kind of rotated in this direction. You want to look at your squash and stretch as well. Don't squash in the air. So make sure you're following kind of what I told Caitlin at the beginning of hers, which is neutral, squash, most stretch right after, neutral. Here's where we're rotating into the curve. We've got no rotation. Our most stretch right before contact. And then we've got a squash. And then it depends, right? You can go to neutral, or if you're going to keep on going, at least 2 frames of contact. And then we're off and repeating the same cycle. We definitely want to round this out a little bit more. You see how it's coming up? We hit here, and then we just change directions. So round these arcs out a little bit more. So you said, is it too slow? You asked if it was too slow in that last bounce. I don't think it's too slow. I think it's too even. Everything is even. And then you kind of run into that same problem, like you would want to have no squash and stretch here. If you want to maintain something like that, then yeah, you'd need to be moving really fast. But I would really look at your arc through here. Like, it does feel a little bit slow in there, and then it changes speed here, but overall, I do feel it's kind of even. Okay, so that's the ball. Now let's look at the tail. So a lot of what I would have to say on this tail is the same thing that I said on Caitlin's right before this, which is we got to point from where we were coming from. So I'll switch to red here. So immediately we need to be down. Now obviously some of this is going to change if you change the path. So clean that up. It's kind of getting all janky in there. Nice, smooth, clean lines. If you want, you can start that first joint down, and then we're really down. And then this is your big change, right? We've got to be pointing from where we came from. So what happens if you don't really get that kind of proper overlap is the tail always feels like it's kind of pointing straight out, and you get a little bit of rotation on those last couple of joints. But the tail is here, and then you get some rotation like this. So if you kind of watch it, it's always out. So it makes it feel really stiff in those last two joints. So in something like this, let's just assume that this is correct. I'm not sure if it is. Okay, so something kind of like that. It just wants to always point from where it came from. I'm a little bit off in there, but hopefully you kind of get the idea. Okay, but ball first. Do the ball first because that'll change everything about your tail, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to animate the tail before the ball is finished. All right. Oh, we got stuff showing up. All right, let me finish Caitlin's pendulum. If anybody's having any trouble getting anything in the folder, let me know, and I will help you out. All right, Caitlin. You're doing a lot of bounces there. All right. So one thing we gotta do is the pendulum chain isn't quite reacting correctly. So I would recommend, like, this implies we're already in movement and we were coming from this direction, sort of. So, don't be afraid to just start it right there. You don't have to, but this kind of slow out, which you would normally do if you're starting from from a standstill, makes it harder to justify that shape. Or you could have it off screen, and you could have it come up like this. But here's the thing we've got going on right now. you're moving in this direction, but we're already flipping over, so it really implies that we were moving fast and now we're slowing down. But we're kind of staying the same speed all through here. So it's a little bit funky. I would say that you're probably rotating, like all of this is happening just a little bit soon, but then we really get stuck. Like you get into this position and it stays for a long time, and you're not moving that fast. I would try to avoid this at all costs so you don't have to deal with something running into that to make it look correct. But this is the tail on the ball. It's the same thing, same idea. Again, this has got to swing back faster because, let's say we're moving back to the left, and then we're kind of slowing down. We've stopped. Now we're moving straight up. This has got to swing through because of follow through. It's got to finish off that movement. So again, we're moving up, but we're not really changing position. And then it's not until we start moving this way does this then come across, which is the opposite, right? As you move this way, you want to drag. So this is late. It's really late. You would want to start that, and then as it starts to pull across, then that chain will kind of get pulled back in the opposite direction. So my recommendation right now, since a lot of this is off, is I would delete this. I would delete all of the animation on the bottom. Get that one correct. Get the overall movement. So let's look here. Let's say it's up to you. You could start here. I would recommend leaving it straight, and as you pull across and get up here, it's probably going to be in some kind of shape like this. And then you can start to, because we're rounding that arc out, you can start to swing it, and maybe it gets to over here by this point. And then you're coming across, and now we're starting to swing back. I'm kind of guessing at this moment, and then you start to pull back over here, so now we're going to start to swing over this direction. You're starting to kind of come down here. So maybe through here, you still have a little bit of this. And now you're slowing down. Hey, Tiffany. And yeah, now we've got a little bit of that. You know, this is close. This is feeling all right through here. Let's see. I think that move actually overall feels kind of correct. Like all of this swing in here is correct. Let's see. Probably a little bit slow overall. Yeah, I think you're stalling right through here. A few frames in here where you're stuck in that position again. This needs to pull across. You know, the good thing is you're getting that successive breaking of joints right through there. Probably don't need to swing quite so high. Again, it stalls a little bit through here. All of this, it just takes a little bit too long to start its move back to the left. Let's see this. Yeah, definitely the ending needs a little bit of work. Let's look at that. And part of it is that it just ends too abruptly. So let's figure this out. So we're moving across. Again, we're kind of stalling through here. We're kind of staying straight, and then it goes. All right, so watch this. This is implying that we're going this way. This is implying that we're going this way. But what happens right here? All of this moves that way. So you can have this going, but this needs to keep going this way. So you still need this going. Part of it is this shape that you've got. You see how this shape right there is curved this way? If you see a shape doing this, it implies it's going this way. When you see a shape doing this, it implies that it's still going that way. And that's what you've got. That shape is implying two different directions, but we're not going two different directions. It's all moving across. So when you still even have this down here, it's telling me that these two joints haven't finished their move to the left. And then we get stuck, right? So we hit here, and then everything starts going back to the left, even though we've got lots of different things happening in here. And then we've got, this is going that way, that's going this way, this is going this way, that's that. So then it's getting all snaky on you. So it needs to be a little bit cleaned up and refined through there. Okay? Now your ball has some of the same issues as your kind of squirrel ball that we already talked about. You've got to round out your arcs a little bit better and then watch your squash and stretch, because your squash and stretch is still off a bit, okay? I know the pendulum is a pain. The good thing is you've got overlap happening. Sometimes it's a little bit late. The beginning it's a little bit slightly incorrect, and then the ending it needs some work. But it's not like you just everything's hitting at the exact same time. So that's good. Okay? All right, let's see. Got a few more in here. Let me download. All right, Michelle, you are up first. All right. Looks pretty good. We'll go through here. You do have a couple places where the ball kind of really stalls, gets a little janky right in here. Can probably remove some of that. Remove a couple of frames. Tail looks fine. A couple times where it looks a little bit like it's curved this way and then this way and this way and this way. Right there. You can clean that up if you want. Again, same thing in here. Do you see how that is going that direction and that's going that direction, and then we come back with this? So make nice clean simple lines. A little bit of the same here. Same thing. So we're going around that curve like this rather than this. The tail's in the right spot, or the tip of the tail's in the right spot. Tail shape is a little bit funky. Same thing. Conform to the shape. So like all through that part. conform to the shape of that curve or that path. Oh, we got a stray one. Okay. So just a little bit there. Nothing too bad. Shouldn't take too long to fix. All right, Erica. Okay, I'm noticing I'm noticing everybody starting in this squashed position. No, Tiffany, it's an assignment about making sure you're conforming the tail to basically point in the direction that it came from. So it's just about following the path so that you're always sculpting the tail from where it came from. So that when you get into this assignment, you're sculpting the tail to follow where it came from. All right, so start from a neutral. Everybody start from a neutral. Otherwise, I don't know what the shape is, right? Maybe this is the normal shape. I mean, I know that it's not because I know the assignment, but we need to start from a neutral so that we see the change of shape, so that we see the anticipation, we see the squash. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit weird. We want to feel it, right? We want the setup. So, neutral, into a squash. All right, so we got to work on our rotation. We got to work on our squash and stretch. We got to work on it all. All right, so let's go through here. When we come off of the ground, let's go back to this. So we got our neutral, we got our squash. Our next frame, once we come off the ground, is going to be our most stretch. We rotate in the direction that we're going. We get up to the top. We have neutral, no squash and stretch, and no rotation. So we're rotating along this, but then as we come up, it's going to level back out. As you come down, the frame before contact will be our most stretch. And then we hit. And then we want 2 frames of contact. If we're going to keep on moving, the next frame, if you're not going to sit there and squash a little bit more, is the most stretch that we're going to have, and it should be in contact. It's going to be the same as this, except we're on the ground. And then we just repeat the process. So let's look at yours, Erica. We're off the ground, we have squash, so we need to be stretched. The other thing that you've got here is we want to flatten out that rotation so that we're not rotated along that axis. Then we want to round out the arc, because right now it feels like a triangle. So all of these feel very hard. So we've got to round those out, okay? Now, you're doing the right thing on the rotation here, though we are slowing down. We don't want to slow down. We don't want our spacing to slow down. We don't want the graph editor to look like this. We want it to look like this. This is what it looks like when it slows down into contact. This is what it is going to look like when it's like a crisp bounce, 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 bounce. Okay? So getting a little bit swimmy in here. You want to be careful with this. Again, we want to rotate. You're going to have the most rotation right out on takeoff, and then it'll kind of even itself out or flatten out. Right now, you're straight up and down, and then you gain more as you go. So we're doing it a little bit the opposite, because we should have none there. And again, very slow easing into the contact or into that position, and we want to go fast. Same thing, very slow, but also squash. So we want to get that ball correct. So do a full pass on that ball. You've got the same issues in pretty much every bounce. And then you get to tackle the tail. So the tail, just like I went over in Caitlin's at the beginning and then Zara's, we've got a point where we came from. So it will be much harder for you right now because you have so many frames in here because you're easing in to contact. So let's find here's your contact. Sort of. This is kind of it. So let's say you need to be in that direction. Again, because you have so many frames here, it will make it a little bit harder. You see how right now you're in this shape? That implies that you came from this direction, but we came from that direction. So now is when you're finally kind of getting there. We want to be back over here. And then we're starting to round that arc out. So you're close here. So you could be there, or let's erase that and go. Let's do this. Okay, so we just gotta, again, you gotta get that ball correct first, and then the tail. So again, if you look at this, as you take off, do you see how this is still up like that? We're still up in this direction, but we're coming from down here. Again, because it's so slow, it's a little bit more complicated. So again, I think it'll help you out if you'll fix that spacing. All right. Bryce, same thing about the beginning. So I think the ball looks pretty good. The tail is very stiff. So same thing that I said in Zara's earlier critique. It wants to. Do you see how? All right, you've got a little bit something different. See how everything hits right here? We hit this position. Everything hits together. And then as you come up, you have these straight lines. Correct overlap, right? It will curl a little bit more like this, but then everything is coming up and hitting at the exact same time. We want to point from where we came from. We didn't come from over there. All right, so let's get in and finesse this. All right, our momentum is going this way, so we don't want to be in that shape. We're still down here. We're down there, down there. We can start. Start to rise up through here. It's not a straight because we didn't come from that direction. We came from that direction. Again, we didn't come from that direction. This shape right here implies either one of two things. We're like flipping and we came from there, or you were going really fast and like skidded to a stop, and this is just flipping over because it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's because of inertia. But we're not. We're just going along our regular bounce. So we're going to want to be in those shapes. I think you can sort of be there, but still we want to point back from there. So we got to get this a little bit more flexible and stop doing the idea of we're here and then we're going to be there and then letting the computer figure that out for you, because that's what's happening right now. That's why you're getting these straights, that straight right there, and then we're all curling. Because if you were having, again, from that pendulum exercise, if you're having correct overlap, and this were really happening, you would have this, right? This is going in this direction, maybe that is going in that direction, which creates that S curve or successive breaking of joints. But anyways, let's get through here. So all of these bounces are they're gonna copy themselves. They're all the same. So again, all through here, whatever that path is, we're going to mimic that path. Maybe a little higher there. So we're not slowing down. We're not flipping over, right? We're traveling in this direction, so we've got to pull from that direction. Okay? So where are we coming from here? Right here. There, 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 there. Here's our path, right? And that tail will travel along that path. Same as that squiggly tail obstacle course, whatever that we did, that I just did with Michelle's. So I'm a little bit off on these. The tip should be closer up there. And then you'll flip this way. Okay, so I think the ball looks decent. The tail needs work, Bryce. Okay. What else? Is there anything else? Let's see. Nothing else in the box. Anybody have any questions? If you have anything that you want me to look at, you can put it in. That's okay, Bryce. You'll get some extra practice. Everybody can use extra practice with overlap. But yeah, if anybody has anything that you would like me to that you want me to look at, drop it in that folder. Let me know in the chat. All right. Oh, Michelle. All right, you got your pendulum in there. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so so we want to work on the ball. Obviously, we've got a triangle. Right there. We don't have the rotation. There's a number of things going on. You see how slow it is when we pop off, and it's fairly even. We're very slow on the way in. So we want to round this out. We've got fast, slow, fast. We want to rotate the ball. Right now, this is either moving up or down, but we want to move along the path, which means we then need to rotate. Okay? So the number of things going on with that ball. But the pendulum right now, so let's look at this. It's not moving. That's good. Careful with, as soon as you do, like that's a big pop, and we're not moving very fast at all. So you might have just a tiny bit as you're doing this, but certainly nothing like that. Just because you're barely moving, like we've barely moved at all. So let's see where we start. You know, we're starting right in here. You're just going to have a really small swing, really small. And we're moving really slow and going this way. We're really not going to swing back. So right now, that pendulum isn't doing the right thing. It's way too big, way too broad, just because you're barely moving. But the other thing that you've got is this. So you see how everything hits right there into this shape? And this is what I drew on the board, really. So everything is arriving into this position all at the same time. So we can call that A. And then everything is traveling over and arriving right here at B. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one all arrive at the same time. Which wouldn't be overlap, right? Because overlap is things start and stop. They finish their move at different time. This top one will finish its move to the left or right before this bottom one ever gets there, because it's way further down the chain. And if you do A to B, always you will find somewhere, if we're going this direction, it's going to be something like that. You're going to find that straight. So let's back up. We're getting close. We kind of skip it right in there. But here's the other interesting thing. This shape, because it's in that curve, implies we're going in that direction, which we are. But right here, what does this shape imply? It implies we're going that way, but we're not, right? Everything's still moving up and to the left. So here's what I would recommend for this. So let's go ahead, let's delete all of those keys that are below the top joint. And then we need some subtle movement happening that works in relation to this on just that top joint, just the first one. Okay? And once you figure that out, like this is go nuts, right? I mean, it's just swinging back and forth, and it's swinging huge, it's like getting really up there, but it's really moving slow. It's crazy. Let's watch it again and look at how the overall speed that you're moving. I mean, honestly, you kind of go, it's a pretty consistent speed through here. For the most part, it's just going to kind of hang, and there's not going to be a whole lot of rocking back and forth because you're moving fairly consistency from right to left. Like if you had this pendulum and it was moved very robotically from this position over to this position, it'll start here. As it gets to here, you know, maybe you're in that position, but it's going to stay in that exact position. If it's moving evenly at the exact same speed, it'll just stay in that same spot until we get to here and it stops, and then when it stops, it'll start to swing back. So once you get that in the first joint, do the same thing that we did in class. Copy paste to this joint, offset all of those keys by 3, repeat the process, copy joints, copy your keys from the second, paste it on the third, and then offset another 3, right? So let's say you had a key on your top joint at frame 1. Well, that key on your second joint will be at 4. That same key will be on your third joint at frame 7, 10, 13. That's how you would work your way down, right? So that's how you want to offset those. That's a generic offset, right? You're going to have to probably finesse some of that stuff in there. It doesn't always work, especially when you get into the end and you're getting those final swings in there. But it's a good it's a good way to start. It'll get you part of the way there. It'll give you maybe, I don't know, 75% of the way there. Okay? So right now, way too broad, everything's hitting at the same time, so I want to kind of adjust that, all right? All right, let's see if we got everything. That is everything in there. Anybody have any other questions? Anything else to look at? You can always put it in there. Tiffany, you got anything to look at? You don't need me anymore. You're a professional. Tiffany, you got all your friends at work watching? Got any tips on a pendulum? All right, later today we'll be putting out our last Halloween little animation on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, Escape Pod Animation. That is our that's our Instagram there. Escape Pod Animation. There may be some peeping in. Anybody I know, Tiffany? Is there anybody from UTD animators who are animating there other than yourself? Anyways, our last Halloween animation should be going out today, if you want to check it out. It's the same thing that I was animating a little bit maybe last week on it. A little creature guy, creature monster. All right. there's nothing else to look at, and there's not, it's about that time. All right, everybody. Thanks for stopping in. For those in Animation 1, good luck on getting your assignments done, due on Monday. Until then, see you later.